All right, so we'll get started. Uh, Today's webinar, I think, is could be in terms of how you work in your career and how you end up where you end up and how happy you are practicing law. Honestly, could probably be one of the most important talks you ever hear because I'm going to tell you really how to think about your career, what type of environment you should be working in, how to make the most of your strengths, how to be happy, how to make the most money, and a lot of other things that I think are extremely important that I've over the past 25 years, I've seen certain people do well and I've seen other people not do well. So I'm going to be talking about your intelligence, work ethic, perseverance, social intelligence, and all the sorts of things that are needed to thrive in large firms and frankly, a lot of mid-sized firms and even smaller firms, depending on where you end up. Uh, a lot of people that are on these webinars, excuse me, are always trying to look to work in the largest firms. They think that that's where they belong. I'm going to tell you why that thought process is, for most people, is not the right way to think about things. I'm going to tell you probably if you feel like you're not succeeding in your career, probably why, because of the choices you've made, and specifically about the type of environment you're trying to be in. I'm going to talk to you about how to best use your skills and your intelligence and your drive in order to be successful. And I'm going to talk to you a lot about just how to be happy and successful practicing law. And honestly, in order to do that, if you go to law school and you take the bar exam and pass, anybody can be incredibly successful practicing law. You just need to make the best use of your God-given skills, which frankly doesn't have to be even being a good attorney. And I'll tell you about that in a little bit. But so this talk today, I think, is something that can help you quite a bit. I'm very enthusiastic about the subject matter because I've seen so many people fail and so many people succeed by thinking about their careers in the way I'm going to talk to you about today. So whether you're a law student or you've been been out of school 20 plus years, this can help you in terms of the decisions you make now. And just so you understand like how powerful this information is, I've seen people in their mid 50s start understanding a lot of what I'm talking about right now and end up having very good careers for the next 20 plus years. So you can have a very good career, but you need to understand kind of the best way to use your skills and how to apply them in law firms or wherever you want to go. And everyone, by the way, has certain skills. Like everyone is born with certain skills. So I always like the example of Joe Biden. I know a tenured professor, he's no longer there, but at Syracuse Law School. And Biden graduated like dead last in his class and had an incredible political career. So obviously, he doesn't have a lot of aptitude for practicing law, but he found something else. The same thing with Bill Clinton and Barack Obama. They both graduated from law school and never practiced in a law firm. They decided to go teach right after graduating from law school and had incredible careers. So anybody can have an incredible career. I know a guy that graduated from Loyola Law School in Los Angeles and couldn't find a job. And he set up his own trust and estates practice because he had nothing else to do in Malibu. And 3 or 4 years later, he was making enough money to buy a $5 million house. So there's all these things that you can do with your career that a lot of people don't understand. There's environments that you belong in that you may not be in. It doesn't have to be a law firm. And the thought process of wanting to work in large law firms, which I think a lot of people have, they think that that's the meaning of success, is absolutely for the right people, the right decision. But for most people, the majority of people, it's not going to be the right decision. So people end up in environments all the time that they're not suited for, and so that leads them to having a lot of resistance and frustration. So that's kind of what I'm going to talk about today, because people do that literally their entire careers, and it just sabotages their happiness. Just a couple of notes before we kind of get starting, start going into all this. This is a live webinar, so after the webinar, I will take any questions you have about this or any other questions you have about your career. I'd encourage you to take notes also, because when you take notes, you tend to remember things better and you can refer back to them later. And I would say in terms of watching this, it may be one of the most impactful things that you watch about how to think about your career. Just because I've been doing this for 25 plus years and I understand the decisions that people make. I understand why certain people are unhappy. why certain people are happy, and all this sort of thing where you can literally, if you pass the bar, you can write your own ticket if you think about your career the same way. So when I do take questions, you can ask questions about this or any questions you have about your career. And generally, as long as we're not going too long, I'll stay and answer all of them. So people make bad decisions. They make bad decisions when they're doing their job searches. They go into different types of things where they don't have the qualities to do them. They don't have the innate skills and they're not that kind of people. Most large law firms are going to demand intelligence. You're going to be up against very, very intelligent people that have major aptitude for practicing law, meaning they did really well in the LSATs. They probably did extremely well in college. They're smart and they can figure problems out that people that aren't smart can't. They have work ethic, the perseverance, and social intelligence. And for people that don't have these, and I'm going to talk about the level and the extreme level you need of all these four characteristics in order to succeed in a large law firm, you're going to put yourself, if you try to go there and you're not necessarily suited for this, you're going to put yourself in an environment where your natural skills won't be rewarded. And you don't have to be. So this is, people go to LLM programs and they think they need to work in a large firm. People come out of law school and they don't go to the best law schools and think they should be working in large firms. People come out of the best law schools and do extremely well there and have great LSATs and everything. And they shouldn't be in large law firms either, but they force themselves into those environments where their natural skills aren't rewarded. And your goal in your career needs to be to put yourself in a position in a practice setting or in a career where you're likely to succeed and be happy, where they're taking advantage of your natural skills and not something where your natural skills aren't going to be rewarded. And everybody has natural skills. You could be, I remember I wrote a book about personal injury attorneys when I was in law school. I was very, very interested and I traveled around the country meeting them. And some of these people were just, and I still see it to this day, were incredibly successful and just making, back then, millions and millions of dollars a year. They were never great students in law school, but they learned that you can go out and be a very good marketer and bring in cases and settle them or take them to trial. That's what a personal injury attorney does. They mainly just try to get cases. And once they get cases, they know they can settle them. And they make a lot of money. If you settle a case for $50,000, you're going to make $20,000. But if you settle one for $1 million, you're going to make $400,000. So you can make a lot of money doing things that you may not think are related to large law firms. And you can also be very happy. So all of these characteristics, intelligence, work ethic, perseverance, and social intelligence are very, very important. And if you don't have world-class skills in these things, you certainly can develop them. It's not to say that you can develop these skills, but if you don't have these qualities and there's not some innate measure to them, or you don't understand what you need, you're probably not going to be successful in a large law firm, and you're going to have different paths that you should be taking. And the better the law firm, the more of these characteristics you need to have. So I'm going to tell you what these characteristics are. You can decide whether or not you can develop them, but you need to understand. I've been doing this for so long. I work with partners that have become, huge rainmakers, but they all have these skills. Like people that succeed all have the skills I'm going to talk about, and they're unusual skills, meaning they're something that most people don't have. So an example would be someone that becomes a professional football player. I mean, it's very, very hard to do that. Very, very few people that come out of college are able to become professional football players. They have a natural skill. Same thing with tennis and all these different things. So I'm going to talk to you about all those today. And I hope you listen, because if you don't listen, you may be putting yourself in a situation where you're probably not going to succeed at a high level. And your goal for your career needs to be someone that goes as far as you possibly can. And you can do that in all these different practice settings. You can do it in a big law firm by all stretch of the imagination. I mean, you need to if you can, but you need to understand what you need to develop. So if you're trying to be in a large law firm or you're in a large law firm, this will help you. But it's also going to help you if you're trying to be in a large law firm or not unhappy in a large law firm. So the first thing that's very, very important to succeed in a major law firm is intelligence. So you have to be very, very smart. You have to have like an aptitude for this, because what attorneys do is they're given problems, whether it's in corporate law, real estate, litigation, they're given problems and they have to be able to figure them out in a way that's better than the person they're coming up against. They have to be very, very good at what they're doing. And intelligence means, I'll tell you a quick example that's that's fun, that I like talking about. It's when I was in maybe 20 years ago or something, or 22 years ago, I don't remember what it was, maybe a little less than 20, but there was a rabbi that recommended to me to hire this guy that had graduated from UC Berkeley Law School when he was 19. And he was so smart that he got into Yale and Harvard and all these different places when he was 16. He was just like an off the charts brilliant guy, and no one was hiring him because he was too young. So the rabbi recommended I hire him. So I brought him on and as my attorney. And very, very smart guy. I mean, graduated from high school at the age of 16. He got probably got a perfect score on the LSATs, always got A's, just a really smart guy. And he came into my company and it was the most amazing thing. Like he didn't even have any training really in how to practice law, but he would just come in and just get incredible results and transactions and litigation. He would figure things out and get rid of cases and stuff very quickly. And so he was smart. He was able to figure out problems that other people didn't see, that people that have been practicing for 20 plus years didn't see, and figure out problems and ways to win things. So he would do that with opposing counsel. When someone's in a transaction, the smartest and most detailed and attorney will get things and contracts and things that and be able to get the best side of a deal. Patent prosecutors will be able to write patents that are accepted by the patent office, or respond to question, when they're not approving the patent. And so the ability to be very intelligent, to have smarts, is going to determine the outcome that a lot of clients get. And if you're working in a large law firm, you're also going to be working against other very, very smart people. And if an attorney isn't very smart, meaning you don't have a natural aptitude for this, you don't have the natural aptitude to work on complex cases and transactions, then you're not going to be giving your clients the best service, and you're also not going to be well received in a large law firm. Now, what does that mean? Just so you can understand. So all that means is there are certain attorneys that work on complex matters with major consequences. So if a company's merging, there could be billions of dollars at issue. If you're working on major consequences, the people that are hiring you need to know that you're very, very smart, and you need to be smart, and you need to get good results and the best results you possibly can. And the better the law firm, typically the smarter the people that are there. I mean, if you go to Cravath, Swaine and Moore, you're going to be at the top of your class, very, very smart. And so this is kind of how things work. The people that are hired by law firms, the largest law firms, the matters that they're working on have major consequences. But if you're an immigration attorney or something, the consequences aren't going to be as large if you don't. I mean, someone obviously won't get for citizenship or whatever, but you're working for one individual. You're not working for a major company with tens or hundreds of millions of dollars at stake. So that's the consequences of what you do. For the smarter you are, the more consequences are going to be. An example that's kind of interesting is when doctors are coming out of medical school. So the people with the best grades and test scores and everything get into things where there's a lot of consequences. The best doctors will become brain surgeons, because if you don't do a good job with that, the person dies. The doctors that don't have the best qualifications will become sleep doctors or psychiatrists, or what is it called, radiologists and things like that. So they don't work on matters that have the most consequences. It doesn't mean they can't have great careers, but the consequences that the medical profession will allow them to do are much less than someone that's that. And you can be very, very successful being a different type of doctor. But the idea is that being smart on these transactions and having the most smarts and litigation is extremely important. And best law firms are filled with the people that are extremely intelligent, and they probably got into top law schools because of their LSAT scores. They probably got the best grades when they got into the top law schools. They probably often went to, this is just a pattern. They might have gone to Ivy League colleges, and they probably did extremely well on standardized tests, which are the SAT and the LSAT. And I want to just make a couple points because it's important to understand. So I'm not saying there's anything wrong with not being smart, because there's all these different things you can go into, and you can be more successful and happy than you might be practicing law in a large firm. But if you take the SAT, what the SAT it's kind of a funny story. It started out as a intelligence test that they would give to enlisted men in the Army and in the armed services. And essentially what it was is it was a intelligence test. So the people that had the highest intelligence, the SAT would not return a score from like 0 to 1600 or whatever it is. It would come back and they would get an IQ. And that test actually was used in order to get people into, started to be used when things like intelligence became more emphasized in the best schools, instead of just because they couldn't tell what grades meant in different high schools and things. So that was used. And so up until I think it might have been like the 1990s, colleges could literally look at your score and that would give them what your intelligence was. So you got a 1580, you obviously were extremely smart. If you got a 1200, you might have been in the 90th percentile intelligence. So that's what they were used for. And the LSAT is also an intelligence test. The ability to do games, for example. The game section was always kind of a way to, it was more of an intelligence test than anything else. So people that are very smart and can solve problems and see things that other people can't see, they're able to outsmart the competition, and they're able to do a better job just because they can see things and they can see edges, and they process problems and things in ways that most people don't. And so corporations hiring major law firms want people that do that. And that's what law firms are essentially charging for. They're saying we have the smartest people that can give you the best representation, that can figure out problems, and they bring those people in. And that's what you get in a top law firm. So you're in a top law firm, you're essentially competing with people that are very, very smart. And you don't have to be, a rock star test taker to be the smartest attorney. There are people that go into certain practice areas and they dive into them and they get better at even the smartest people. But you have to understand that if you're going to compete in an environment where people are very, very smart, it's not good. It's not a good thing. So if you don't have that, I remember there was a guy that was hired at a law firm I worked at. He had graduated from Whittier Law School and hadn't done particularly well there. He was hired because he was a friend, son of a client or something. And people wouldn't even talk to that guy because he just didn't understand problems. And he couldn't talk about and see things in complex commercial litigation that other people could. So when you're in a really good firm, you typically have to have some sort of innate smarts. I hate to say it, but if you don't have that, they're going to catch on to that very, very quickly. And just as if you were talking to someone that wasn't smart and as smart as you and saw that they were missing things and stuff, that's a problem. And there's nothing wrong with not having those abilities, because people can have all sorts of abilities. Like you could be a really good family lawyer, which involves all sorts of skills that aren't necessarily always that complex. Or you could be a personal injury lawyer and all these different things. You could have your own practice and trust in estates, so there's all these things. But just to understand that if you want to work in one of those environments, you're going to be working with people that the largest clients are hiring because they're very smart and they think they can get the best solutions to their problems. And as attorneys get older and they need to be able to be smart and convince in-house counsel and things, that they are. And in-house counsel at the largest companies, those are people that were either have a lot of experience as associates in top law firms, or they were partners in top law firms. And so they want to find people that have the depth to understand their issues. So they're presented, when they're hiring people, they're presented with different attorneys and how those attorneys recommend solving problems. And they can detect how smart you are just by talking to you. And they'll hire the people that they think are the smartest and can understand their problems the best. And they typically will the best in-house counsel will look at the law school you went to, or if you didn't go to a top law school, they'll want to see, you're ranked at the very top of your class. And, again, having these smarts is no different than, being able to solve all the LSAT logic games in like half the time you're given. I mean, some attorneys excel at this and other people don't, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, but if you don't have that kind of innate intelligence, you're going to struggle because you're going to be competing with people that have that innate intelligence in those environments. And, so you need to be able to put yourself in a position. There are people that go into large law firms. I knew a girl that went to University of Virginia with me, and she was not a particularly good student, and didn't necessarily have those innate skills, but she went into a law firm's trust and estates department. She was a major US law firm, and those skills involve meeting with clients, making people feel comfortable. She's very attractive. She just had a really good personality, and she became a partner in a major US law firm, even though she probably didn't have that intelligence. But she went into a practice area where her skills, which were awesome in relating to people and making people feel comfortable and entertaining people and talking about trust in the states, it's not extremely complex. She excelled, and she had her own kind of innate abilities that were rewarded. And so, if you didn't go to a top law school, and you didn't do that well, and you're trying to get into these major law firms, and you think that that should be your career goal, you're just not, it's not a smart choice a lot of times. I mean, I'm not saying you can't do it, but if you're up against people that are far more intelligent than you, it's going to be difficult. I mean, you're going to be frustrated. People are going to realize that you aren't smart, that you're not going to be advanced, and it's counterproductive. And so, if you try to work in a large law firm, and that's really what you think, you just have to understand you're going to be competing against people that have the ability to solve problems faster and get better outcomes. I will just tell you, it could be based on your practice area. If I had become a corporate attorney, I don't think I would be very, very good at it. It's not, has nothing to do with my natural skills. I like writing about people and dealing with people, and writing and things, and so it just wouldn't have gotten good results. And so, if you don't have that innate skill, what happens? I've seen it in law firms. Smarter people will basically talk behind your back and say this person can't understand things. You'll get assignments from partners. You won't understand really what to do. You'll turn in work that doesn't give them what they want. And it's a problem, and it can be demoralizing, and it's not fair to you. It doesn't, it's not good. So you can work your entire career and try to get into one of these firms, and if you have different types of skills, you can. But if you go into one of these firms, you're just going to not, be in a good situation. So what this means is, if you're like, for example, if you're a Division IV basketball player and you're an average player and you try to play with the Los Angeles Lakers, they're going to just immediately sense that you don't have the ability that they do. You'll do things that they don't. It will be absolutely demoralizing for you. You won't be able to do it. And athletes have different innate abilities. Some can compete at a very high level and others can't. So there's nothing wrong with being a basketball player and not being able to play for the Los Angeles Lakers because you don't have those innate skills. And so that's really kind of what happens. And very highly intelligent people have different types of skills than ones that aren't. And again, people have different types of intelligence. They have type intelligence. They have social intelligence. They have perseverance intelligence. They have all these different types of intelligence. But this ability to solve complex problems is not something that everyone has. For example, I did great on my math SATs, but if I had gone to Caltech and tried to get a PhD in astrophysics, I would be blown out of the water. People that go to that school would understand issues much more quickly than I could. They would see things that I don't, and that would be impossible for me. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just I'm not the person that could get a PhD in Caltech from in astrophysics. And I also couldn't argue a case before the Supreme Court because I don't have the appellate experience or probably the innate ability. And so different people, you have to realize what are your limitations and how do you put yourself in an environment where you're going to succeed and not be happy. So I always see people like all the time, they might have gone to a lower ranked law school, didn't do that well, and they try to work for, in a major law firm, and they're just going to, face a lot of resistance. Those firms are going to not want to hire them. And there's an overabundance of very, very smart people. So even though these large law firms have openings, they have a lot of people to choose from. So why would you set that as your goal when it's going to be very, very difficult for you to get in there? Now, again, there are people that go to lower rank law schools that don't do well there, that are extremely intelligent and actually do succeed in large law firms, but it's very, very difficult. And even if you get the position because you are able to network with people and you do a good job, you're still going to be in an environment where you're competing against people that are very, very intelligent. And so your odds of success aren't that great. And so why would you try to go into something where you're not making the most use of your skills? I mean, it can be very, very difficult. And if you or your goal is to enter environments where you're unlikely to succeed, then you're going to face disappointment. It's demoralizing. You're going to feel incompetent. You're going to feel unintelligent. It's going to damage your confidence. Sometimes people go in those environments and they're just so demoralized that they stop practicing law, and it just makes them feel like they're not good attorneys, even though they could be in another practice setting or another firm size, and they would do well. So, you can still. I've seen lots of people that start out with an intellectual disadvantage. I've seen people fail the bar like 3 times. And then when they finally pass it, they start out in a small law firm and they become very, very competent and they get into major law firms and have good careers. But it's rare. And if you start an environment where your success is unlikely, it's a risky proposition. Now, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with trying to get a job in the very best firm and going there and giving it everything you got. But I've just seen so many people have these problems when they do that. So your career decisions need to be about choosing environments that are going to align with your skills, intelligence, and all these other qualities. And so if you take someone like Joe Biden, who did horribly in a okay law school, but he was able to do something that matched his skills. And for you, it could be working in a smaller firm where the clients aren't as large and where the competition and complexity is different. Or you could choose a practice area that's less complex, where you can thrive and you can be very, very good at it. I mean, again, like I talked to you about earlier with like personal injury, which I think is like one of the most awesome practice areas there is, because it's really more about being able to get clients and then settle cases than as necessary. I mean, the liability is usually pretty clear. Someone gets hit by a bus, you sue the bus company. But I can't stress enough that, even if you are successful, if you are smart and you can figure out these problems, which a lot of people are, even the majority of those people aren't going to be able to succeed in a law firm environment because they just don't have the natural skills. And unless you have, these additional qualities we'll talk to you in a minute about, like a work ethic and perseverance and social intelligence, you're also not going to succeed. So let's talk a little bit about work ethic. So today, people want lower hours. They want, they want whatever. They want to work remotely and not have to drive to the office and all those sorts of things. And but work ethic is incredibly important to be practicing law in certain types of environments, especially in large law firms. I mean, law firms make more money the more hours you bill. So obviously, they want people that are going to work hard and bill a lot of hours compared to those that don't. So I had a very interesting experience that taught me all about this when I was a summer associate. So I was a summer associate in a large New York law firm. And when I was the first, I don't know, they did reviews. It was 14 weeks or something, and they gave everyone a review after 7 weeks. And the first 7 weeks I was there, I was like, oh, this summer associate is just kind of cushy and everything. And I would come in at 9:30 or 10, leave by 6. And at the middle mark of my, or when I was, sorry, excuse me, at the middle of the summer when I got a review, I just got this horrible review. They were just not very nice to me at all. And I was like, what the hell's going on? It was like this dark room lights down, wood paneling, and I was like, this is horrible. And I came out feeling just really badly about myself. And then I talked to a girl that had a mentor in the firm, and she'd gotten a really good review, and her mentor said, just bill as many hours as you can to get an offer, and that's all they care about. So and she told me that. And so the next 7 weeks, I come in at 8 and work till 9 and things. And at the end of the summer, they were like, we love you. Like, you can come to work for us after your clerkship and all this sort of stuff. And then it was during a time when there was a really bad recession in legal markets, and they only made 2 offers out of a class of like 17 or something. And one of the offers was to the girl that told me to work hard, and the other was for me. So hours are very, very important. That's how people are law firms. That's how they make money. So also with clients. So clients are, very, very concerned about if they have an issue, they need you to work very, very hard on it. If there's a merger, if there's significant litigation, and they're willing to pay for it. So you have to work very, very hard, and it's very important where in different practice areas. There are practice areas where the workload is just intense and never goes away. And I know lots of attorneys that I talk to all the time, and they're in these environments where it's just 7 days a week, and they can't. It's just absolutely crazy, and they're getting emails and text and things late at night, and it just happens all the time. If you're a litigator, I remember when I was a litigator, like I would have all these cases and deadlines. I get a printout of all my deadlines, at the beginning of the week. And then every day they would send around these things with deadlines for motions and for all this different things and for different cases. And it just kept going. And in order to succeed in that environment, I mean, I had to work hard. And it's even more so in large markets. I mean, the large markets typically a lot of the big firms are working on very large matters, and you have to, if you have a good work ethic, it's going to keep you there. Partners will often have clients that are willing to let them bill a lot of hours, and so if you're working for a partner with a client like that, they're going to want you to work hard because the client's going to pay for it, even if a lot of the work seems over the top and unnecessary. And firms will often promote and retain attorneys based on billable hours. So I told you about me getting hired as a summer associate. I had another thing happen. So the first firm I was at, Quinn Emanuel, I quit. And then when I quit, John Quinn came to talk to me, and it's like, and I said, well, I'm upset because my friend didn't make partner, and someone else did. And he said, yes, but the person that didn't make partner only billed 2,600 hours, and the person who made partner billed 3,200 hours. I mean, so just think about that. I mean, just the number of hours made things. And then it's the same thing with senior attorneys. So senior attorneys, partners, are also under a lot of pressure. They're under pressure to bill a lot of hours and bring in as much money as they can. And so the more hours they bill, the more money they make. And so work ethic is just something that's ingrained in law firms. To be a partner, you have to bill a lot of hours. So to be a successful associate, you do. And if you're not working a lot of hours, the law firm isn't going to be as excited about you. If you don't bill a lot of hours to a client, if you're getting something where you're supposed to, it's going to not be good, and you're going to not advance if you don't want to work hard, and it's just how it is. And so you're never going to succeed at a level that you need to or you want to if you're in an environment like that, and that's not something you're willing to do, and you're not hungry enough. You can't reasonably expect to go into these major law firms and say you want to work reduced hours, because their clients may demand lots and lots of hours. And so people that would do that or have problems. And the same thing with small firms. Like I knew a guy I was working with, he went to Yale Law School, and he started out in a big firm, and he thought, okay, I'm going to go to this other firm that's smaller. I'm going to take a significant pay cut, but I won't have to work as hard. And then he got there and figured out that because they were still working on large matters, he had to work just as hard. Geography can also influence things. So the largest cities, like if you want to work in New York or Los Angeles, Chicago, they're going to demand the longest hours from their attorneys. If you go to smaller markets like Syracuse or Grand Rapids, Michigan, or whatever, not a huge market, there are firms where everyone just kind of consistently leaves at 5 or 6. I was talking to a guy yesterday. He's a partner. He's a real estate partner in a kind of a mid-sized to smaller firm in New York, and he's been working for the past 2 years, literally like 7 days a week. He takes the train in at like 6:30 or 7, then he leaves on the train at like 11 at night to go back to Connecticut. And it's just a horrible life. He's been doing this for years, and so I got him another offer at a firm. Actually, he's making 600,000. I got him another offer at a firm paying 400, and he's seriously considering it because they're like, we tend to come in at like 9:30. Most of us are on the 6 or 7 o'clock train. And so he's literally, thinking about taking a $200,000 pay cut. So again, if you work in smaller firms many times, or you work in smaller cities, then it's not going to be as much. If you're going for these super high salaries at major firms, in order for them to pay that, they're going to need you to work a lot of hours. And so if you don't like that, then you shouldn't be trying to work in these types of firms, or even sometimes your practice area. Demanding practice areas, litigation is always demanding, and corporate law can be demanding. And so you may be better off in a firm where there's less demands and constant work. Because if you're trying to work in a major market or major firm, you're going to find that. Now, why are smaller markets? This is just to kind of give you some ways to think about your career. So smaller markets, the firms that are typically not representing the largest clients. And so because they're not representing the largest clients, the clients aren't willing to just keep writing checks for even, major law firm. They may bill a client millions of dollars a month. And smaller markets, they tend to be representing more local companies and things, and those clients don't have those kind of budgets. And so you're not expected to work as hard. And the matters, like the significance of the matters, are not as great as in the largest markets. I was reading the biography of Michael Dell, and he was taking Dell Computer public or something, and he was in Texas. I don't remember Fort Worth, where the hell that is. And he didn't hire. I mean, he was in Dallas. He didn't hire firms in Dallas to help him with it. He hired like Wachtell or something in New York. I mean, he went to a market where people where their expertise. Firms in New York charge a lot more because the attorneys tend to have better expertise, and it's just different. And so a lot of people that go into major firms have just a horrible experience. They believe that this is what practicing law is like. They're unhappy. They don't like it. They think, oh, maybe I should do something else. I talk to people all the time. I talked to a woman yesterday that was just finished her first year at a major law firm, and she wants to go into I don't know, she wants to go to work in the government or in-house because she doesn't like the hours. But a very, very smart person, she could work in a smaller firm and be happy, but she didn't think about that. So the expectations are going to vary based on the geographic location you're trying to work in, the size of the firm, how much they pay. And so a lot of people, they just involve their ego in this thing, and they think, I need to work in the best firms. If I don't do it, I need to do another career or whatever, another practice setting. And so they don't really do an honest self-assessment about where they would be best off. And so they focus on the reputation of the firm, they focus on the size of the market instead of understanding what's important to them. So there are lots of legal positions that don't require this incredible work ethic. Like I said, there's small firms, there's in-house positions, there's government jobs. Government jobs are amazing. I was my first summer, I worked in the Justice Department under this honors program thing or whatever it was. And there were all these people like in my department. I mean, they're very, very smart people. They went to Stanford and Yale and all this stuff, working in government. But I mean, you get in there and maybe 9 a.m. people would start rolling in. But by 5 or 6, you could walk through, I mean, the entire Justice Department. There'd be no one there. I remember I had a friend come visit me on a Friday, and we just walked through the Justice Department. It was like 6 o'clock at night, and there was just no one there. And so government jobs are like that. A lot of public interest positions are like that. Teaching roles are like that. I mean, you don't need to, you can have your own solo practice. That can be like that. And so unless you have this incredible work ethic, why would you put yourself in a situation where you're going to be just judged based on a number of hours you bill? You should probably try to work in an environment that where you feel safe and where you may not have to do that. So you have to think about that. If you want to work in the biggest firms, you're going to be judged based on your hours. In order to get there, you need to be smart, but that's how it works. The other thing is perseverance. So what does perseverance mean? That means that bad things are going to happen to you. You're going to attorneys lose their jobs. It's very common. Most attorneys do, or they're asked to leave a firm, or whatever, or they have a very, very hard time when they get to firms or at some point in their careers. And there's two kind of periods of history. In 2001 and then in 2008, entire classes of corporate associates lost their jobs at major firms. There were firms in Silicon Valley. There's one I'm thinking of. I don't want to name them because they're a client, but they hired all these people out of law school, like maybe 60 of them. It's a big firm, and they knew they didn't have any work, so they knew they're going to have to let them go, but they wanted to see what was going to happen, and so they put these 60 people like in another office building, not connected to their main campus, because they knew they're going to have to let them go. And so, but this is what happens. It's, there are periods of time where people lose their job. And what was interesting is that, a lot of practice areas also came to a complete standstill, and the corporate attorneys didn't have any jobs. But there are people that just refused to give up. And I saw lots of people that lost their jobs, and they got back into large law firms. I'm thinking of one guy who was very interesting. Like, he was in New York, there was absolutely no work, and he lost his job, but he just spent his whole day like networking. He networked with me, that took me out to lunch to ask me questions, and just, but to see, to succeed, you have to just have a lot of perseverance and not give up, because you're going to lose your job. Most people lose their jobs at some point. A lot of people make mistakes. I've seen so many first-year associates or second-year associates just make bad mistakes. They I don't know, they'll do something like they'll be up till 4 a.m. working on a transaction, then the signing's at 10. They oversleep. They make a really bad mistake on some document or something. They have it just completely, hurts their self-esteem. I saw one girl that in litigation, there's these things called a verification that you have to attach with discovery, meaning the clients reviewed it and this is the correct answers. And I saw one woman was like a 7th or 8th year that was up for a partner, and she forgot to attach one of those. And then all of a sudden, for not doing that, all this stuff, the discovery was deemed, I don't know, but there was, it took the firm like hundreds of thousands of dollars in time to reverse it. So people help make all these mistakes. And, the more perseverance, the higher the pay, the more perseverance you're going to need to have. And you're going to need to have extraordinary endurance and be able to keep going in the face of hours and mistakes and all these sorts of things. And just to give you kind of a understanding of how much perseverance you need to have, a lot of large law firms may hire, I mean, there's not a lot of them, but they'll hire 100 people out of law school to become associates. And after 10 to 12 years, there might only be a couple of them left, and other people leave. They don't have the perseverance, and they just do other things. They're not committed, and they don't, do everything that they can. So, a law firm, in order to be successful in a law firm, a large one, it's often very important, who you work for. If you work for someone with a lot of business and you work on the most important matters and you become indispensable, then that's good. Your success will be dependent a lot of times on the work in your practice areas. So if corporate implodes and you lose your job, you're going to need to figure out, you're going to need to, different firms you'll work in will have different politics, and you have to be able to fit into culture. So lots of associates, like when they're earlier in their career, they'll go into a firm as a first year, they'll make all these mistakes, they'll get a bad brand, and then and then they'll move to another firm, they'll learn about knowing all the mistakes they made, and they'll succeed there. Or they'll have problems and they'll just succeed at their existing firm. So all these things happen, and you have to persevere, because you can literally wind up in an environment where the people don't like your type of person. And if you go to another firm, then you can find things. That's one of the benefits of, doing a job search. One of the things that I try to do with my candidates. So having this perseverance and adaptability is important. And if you succeed, you're gonna, you need to have faith in yourself. You need to believe in your abilities, and you need to be motivated to continue, and you need to have self-confidence, and you need to be able to push through setbacks and challenges. You need to be able to find other jobs if you can. And if you don't have that perseverance and confidence, you're never going to reach where you need to. Again, I think I'm going to tell this story in a few minutes, but I'll just tell it now. I was working in the Los Angeles office of a big New York law firm, and that firm had been open for, I don't know, the office had been open like 15, 17 years or something at that point, and they never made a partner. And we were at this cocktail party, and I was with another associate, and he was talking to a partner. He's like, "No one ever makes partners." Well, everyone leaves. So if they stayed, they would have been up for it. And it's kind of interesting. It was, yeah, and this is the example, you're saying everybody leaves. And so people just leave that firm. They get psyched out, they don't have the perseverance, and that ends up hurting them. And so a lot of attorneys don't get to where they want to because they don't have the perseverance. They decide that they need to get out. They want to go in house. They start questioning the legal careers, and most people do. They'll say, "I don't like the hours, I don't like the practice area," whatever it is. They just don't have the perseverance. And if you have perseverance, regardless of what you're doing, you're going to succeed. I've noticed it's very common for large law firms to hire people that never could have joined them in law school. Out of law school, they didn't go to the best law school, they have grades or whatever. But the law firm will hire them. They may not, they develop expertise in a practice area. Them could be corporate or real estate. And by the time they're like a fifth or sixth year, there are not a lot of people with that expertise. So you could be a really good patent attorney or have a really good experience with the real estate commercial transactions. And then all the people that they could hire as a fifth year or sixth year, there's just not a lot of people on the market left. And so and if you're committed to whatever, if it's a medium-sized firm and then you try to go to a large firm, then that's good because it shows that you're persevering and you're motivated to get better. And law firms like that. Law firms want to bring in people that are very, very motivated and very, very committed, because a lot of times, by the time attorneys are like a fifth or sixth year working in big firms, they're no longer as motivated. But so they're like people that are trying to move up. And law firms know that these attorneys, even if they're not coming from the biggest firms, are likely to work harder, want to prove themselves, are grateful for the opportunity. And so they can take that perseverance and make money. And but that's the person's also has perseverance. And so partners will lose jobs. Partners will lose major clients and have setbacks. Partners, all these things will happen to partners a lot of times. Will lose their book of business and have to move to a new firm. And so there are partners that are able to persevere through these challenges. Many times partners will lose their jobs multiple times, and then but they'll have this perseverance to rebuild their book of business. And it's just all very, very important. And it's also important when you're looking for a job. So you want to work in a major firm or you want to work in any type of firm, like you have to have perseverance. Like I see people that I work with, like I'll send them maybe 15 jobs for them to approve for me to apply to, or I'll send them a list of 100 places they should apply to. And then I'll keep sending them things. And then if they don't get any traction or from what I do, if they don't get enough traction from applying to 20 jobs, they won't look at other markets, or they'll think that there's something wrong and they need to give up. And this just happens constantly. And if you're trying to find a job, you need to have that level of perseverance too. And very few people do, because if you're looking for a job, you should be looking at multiple markets. You should be looking at firms that don't have openings and trying to market yourself there. And you should be doing everything you can to get a job. And so I will do that with my candidates. I have perseverance because obviously it makes my business do better. I try to make people apply to as many places, but people that have that perseverance do well. And it depends on a lot of things, your practice area and so forth. But the level of perseverance you need to succeed will also depend on the legal environment you're working in. So if you want to work in a government position, some are going to require more or less perseverance. If you want to be in public interest, some will require more or less perseverance. If you want to get a job in law school, some will require more or less perseverance. If someone is running for a Congress or whatever, I mean, they may fail a couple times, but then they succeed. and get elected. So you have to have perseverance there. So just understanding this level of perseverance and commitment and how that will really overcome anything if you can succeed doing that. The next thing is kind of the social or emotional intelligence that you need to succeed in law firms. So this is very important. This is about how you react to others in your environment. It's about how you get along with people, and you could be very smart, you could work very hard, and you could keep trying, but it's only going to go so far if you don't have this social and kind of emotional intelligence. You need to be able to understand where people are coming from, for the people you're working from, where they're coming from, where the clients are coming from. You need to be able to read complex social situations. You need to be able to relate to others and handle the conflict that happens with clients and colleagues and everything, because there's going to be conflict. You need to understand, what's going to happen. Like you want to be part of the group of people that have problems with the firm and kind of socialize with them, or do you want to be part of the group that is not doing that or is avoiding that? And you think about that. And each firm you work for has different behavioral expectations. There's just different ways that people act. I go and talk to law firms. I don't do it as much anymore, like visit them, but I used to spend a lot of time going out and visiting law firms. And when I would do that, I would go into certain firms and I would just be like, this place is it's freaking me out. Like the way that just it wouldn't be the type of attorneys that I would click with. I go into others and I feel very comfortable. And so you have to be able to understand people. You have to be able to understand relationships. You have to make people like you. You have to do all these sorts of things. And you have to have this sort of social intelligence. You have to be able to be comfortable around different types of people and make them trust you. And you may be able to do that better in one environment than another. And people that have high social intelligence understand how to speak about things. They understand about what to say. They understand the tone they should use with different audiences. They have to be able to they have to be able to tailor their ability to work with different types of people. They have to be able to listen. They have to be able to understand clients. I mean, all these sorts of things kind of go along with it. And different types of legal jobs will require different levels of emotional intelligence. So if you're a patent attorney, and a lot of times patent attorneys are just hired just to kind of sit there and crank out patents, and and you may not need as much emotional intelligence, but you have to think about that. You have to be able to impress multiple people and get them to like you. You have to manage relationships carefully. You have to make clients like you, and you have to be able to avoid conflict. So many people, I mean, it's literally more than half of the attorneys go into law firms, and they just have problems with people. They say, "Oh, I would never want to be a partner there," or they get in conflicts, and they associate with people that are failing, that don't belong in that firm, and then they get kind of bunched in with them. So all these sorts of things happen. I mean, people advance people, and people give work to people, other people, like partners give work to other people that make them feel comfortable and that they like, and that there's some sort of connection professionally, but also just people liking each other. And clients want that too. So if you have those relationships, people will, people will support you and advance you, and it'll be based on the power of those relationships, not necessarily, so they're choosing. And think about yourself. Say you have like two, give this example. Say you have two nannies working in your house, and one of them you really like, you have coffee with her or him, whatever, and the other is just kind of very professional and does their work and leaves. If you don't have enough money to pay both of them, you're probably going to choose the one that you have coffee with and you're comfortable with, if you have to lay one of them off. So that's just how law firms are too. And that's how people are advanced. And so if you have that social intelligence, you're going to be able to earn more money within the firm and outside the firm through those relationships. People will say, "Oh, I just want to be professional. That's all it's about." I'll never forget this. I had this woman. She was a patent attorney in she's in Chicago or Detroit or something. And I was talking to her, and I was trying to ask her personal information, like, where'd you grow up? Tell me about your family. tell me about your parents, tell me why you chose to become an attorney, all these sorts of things, because I was going to try to personalize her to law firms. And I'll never forget it. She's like, none of that matters. The only thing they're concerned about is the patents I've written and my law school and all this sort of stuff. And she was unemployed and just refused to kind of give me the information. And I got off the phone. I was like, geez, I just felt like, wow, this person wouldn't tell me anything about them, so I couldn't personalize them to law firms. And then I searched her name on the internet, and then I saw that she'd sued two previous employers and sued a hair salon for putting too much relaxer in her hair or something. And so she didn't have social intelligence, and her career is over because she wasn't able to relate to people, and it happened in law firms. And so social intelligence is important. You need, most attorneys need to be able to be comfortable with different types of people. People that have the most social intelligence and get along with other people are more likely to be advanced. People with that will leave the right impression on people. They'll be able to bond with clients that will give them influence, security, and opportunities in their career. I have this one guy that I worked with, and he's very interesting. He was a surfer. He used to go down to El Salvador, and then he met these two guys that had this business developing airports or something, and they became his friends, and so they gave him all this business. They gave him like millions of dollars in business, and he didn't even do that type of work, so he had to give it to other attorneys in his firm. And I talked to him, and I don't know what I was saying, but he's like, I call them every week. Like each of them, I call every week. I talk to them personally. I see how they're doing, and to get all the social intelligence to get along with these different types of people. And very, very interesting to me. I mean, just how powerful that is. It's powerful with clients. And so you need to have it. And if you don't have that type of social intelligence, then you may never be able to develop business. And that's okay. You can be someone that just does work. But that social intelligence is huge. I was talking to a partner in a law firm yesterday, and we were talking about a candidate, and he was going to pay the candidate $500,000 a year. I think it was a partner, and I said, well, he wants to make 700, and the partner said to me, he's like, well, he's not in a position yet where he doesn't have any business, and he's not someone that would be able to be what he called it, what grinder, a minder, meaning someone that would be able to work directly with the clients, be their contact, be their friend, and all that sort of stuff. And so if he got to that level, he could make 700,000, but he doesn't have it yet. He's just a worker. And so he's basically saying that if this guy wants to get to the income he wants, he's got to be someone that bonds with the clients and is their friend. And but he didn't have that. There's a lot of roles where you don't need to be have a lot of social intelligence. You can be a law professor. I mean, even there, you need to try to make tenure in a place and get along with people. You can be a tax lawyer. You can do ERISA. You can do patent work and brief writing and things. But without more social intelligence, you're probably not going to advance and get to the level you have. And so, if you have that, it can help you. If you don't, it doesn't. So people make mistakes all the time. I've seen lots of attorneys lose their jobs from getting too drunk at a party or something. I see it all the time. I had one guy that was a partner. He was the head of a practice group in a major law firm in Chicago, and he was asked to go out and help, I don't know, another attorney in, I don't know where it was. What was it? I made Miami or something, close a client, and he got onto the plane in the morning. He had some drinks, then he went in to the meeting in Miami, and they could tell he'd been drinking. He lost his job. He was like, they literally fired this guy that was head of the corporate practice group, he's probably making $2 million a year, and lost his job. And then he redeemed himself. He went to AA and rehab and everything. And then I ended up getting him a job at a middle market firm after that. And he was back on his feet, but just got too drunk. I had another guy in Chicago. He was very, very successful. He was at like a major, one of the top like five largest firms there. And he had a big book of business, like, I don't know, 5 or 6 million. Maybe it was more than that. I think it was like 10. He had like $10 million in business. And 4 or 5 years previously, he dated a paralegal at the law firm for just a couple months. And And then somehow it came to light that I think the boyfriend of the girl that he'd been dating called the firm and said what this guy had done dating this girl, even though I don't know why he did it. I think he did it. The guy was even, it was years later, and the woman had, her new boyfriend didn't know anything about him, but she told him, and they got in a fight and he did that. And so this guy literally lost his job and lost all his business, and went into a went in house doing something. It's horrible. And so people make these mistakes all the time. I saw one guy in a big firm in upstate New York. He went into work for a casual day, and he had a rip in his pants that was close to his crotch, and someone complained he lost his job. I mean, people make all these mistakes, and and it can, it's just crazy. I mean, getting too drunk or just doing stupid things, hurt them. And so if you can't get along with others, you make mistakes, and you have these social lapse in social awareness, they can have really bad consequences, even for hardworking attorneys. So this guy that had dated the paralegal, he didn't do anything wrong. It's just that he was in a position where he was a superior, and so he lost his job. So things, sometimes being narcissistic, sometimes making inappropriate comments, sometimes, causing unnecessary problems over inconsequential things. Sometimes just, someone hearing that you criticize them, a partner, and you said something negative with them, or, you don't have good relationships and all these sorts of things. So these can hurt people. And if you don't have that sort of social intelligence, it could, it's not good. And so, this can be a root cause. Now, there are people, by the way, that may not have the most social intelligence in large law firms, but they could do very well in smaller environments or their own practice. But I'm not going to talk too much more about this, but I think it's important to understand this, that that it's important. So you can often, if work with people that are like-minded, or there's no solo practice, go to another practice setting, and and this stuff can help you. So just understanding that in order to do well, you need to be able to get along with people. I don't know of a partner out there with a decent book of business that doesn't have very, very good social skills with clients. I just don't, that's what they do. And the ability to navigate relationships within their own law firm. That's what they do. So you need to have that if you're going to be successful. That's just, and if you don't have it, you need to put yourself in an environment where you don't need it, and you can do all sorts of other things, but you need to have that. So again, I'll just go back to this. There's certain people that are built for large law firms, for a very demanding practice areas, and there's others that aren't. And you have to be able to succeed at a high level. You have to have some sort of innate intelligence that you can come up against other people and do very well. You have to have a very strong work ethic. You have to have lots of perseverance, and you have to have social and emotional intelligence. Some of these, like just another example of intelligence, because I think it's so interesting. When I was at Quinn Emanuel, there's this guy that was just off the chart smart. Like, you could talk to him about a problem, and he would come up with these extremely complex solutions. And he got into Yale Law School, and but he had all these like very serious mental problems. He'd been institutionalized for depression, I don't know, or whatever, mania, but they hired him just to sit there and be smart and talk to people. It's crazy. But work ethic, perseverance, and if you are deficient in any of these, like, why would you try to succeed in a major law firm environment if you don't feel that you can fix them, if you don't ever want to have that level of perseverance, if you don't get along well with people, which you can fix, and if you're not smart in the people you're coming up against, and you don't think you can do well. So you have to have at least strength in some of those areas. All right, so we'll take a quick break, just for like a minute or two, and then when I come back, we'll do questions. Again, like, I think questions are one of the most important parts of the webinar, because it enables you to ask things that are relevant to your career, and it's a live webinar. So I'll answer any questions you have, and then also other people's questions. You can always learn a lot from that. Take a quick break, and then when I come back, I will do questions. Thanks. So let's get to questions. The questions are one of my favorite parts of the week because I always love getting new perspectives and things that people are talking about. And I think just kind of understanding where you're coming from. I mean, people's questions, I always kind of learn a lot from them as well. And I think other people do. So give me 1 second. Here we go. Okay, let's see here. First question. I went to a holiday networking event at a bar last year held by a bar association for my racial demographic. I invited another attorney from out of state, an influential member of the association, whom I guess it was under the influence, physically attacked my guest for some stupid reason. My guest was genuinely traumatized by the incident. Since then, it seems like some people in the group have been subliminally blaming me for being my guest. If I were to continue acting with that group in the future, which I want to do despite everything for the connection to other attorneys of my demographic, how do you suggest I succeed? Okay, well, so people make mistakes. I don't know that you can be blamed for bringing a guest like that. But if maybe people are blaming you, then I mean, it just seems very strange that your guest was physically attacked. But most things like that, if you think about like politics, for example, like just take Trump, like he's all these things that negative that happened to him, getting sued and called a racist, I mean, whatever. So people just the whole idea of this sort of thing is you just anything bad that happens to you. And I don't really think you did anything wrong here. I mean, I'm not quite sure, but anything bad that happens to you, you just need to keep persevering. People forget about it in the long run. Almost anything that you do, uh, you know, you know, I mean, even crimes, like people still have life after committing crimes. I mean, it doesn't, you have to just keep persevering and people will forget about it over time. So it's not something that I think if it was me, I wouldn't be too worried about it. I would just keep doing what you're doing and people forget about it. I mean, most people forget about all the sorts of bad things that happen. And, I don't think it's anything. I mean, if you want to ask a follow-up question, I don't know that I've answered that very well. But I would just continue with the organization because people forget about it over time. It's not something 3 years from now that's going to make a big difference. And you'll be able to be in that same organization for maybe 50 years or 30 years or whatever in your career. What specific skills should our law firm prioritize when hiring associates who aim to become successful partners? Well, I think, a law firm needs to, yeah, I don't know, but you need to be able to make sure that people are learning that they have to work hard. You need to make sure that people learn that they need to stay positive and not negative. And you need to make sure that people learn that they need to network very early in their careers and meet a lot of different people. So people that are successful in the long run and become partners usually do it because of their work ethic and doing a really good job with the stuff and by staying there and not giving up. And then the other thing is that people will succeed not just based on that, but based on their social skills and ability to hopefully generate work eventually. So if I was a law firm, the first thing you need to do is make people feel comfortable and like their opinion matters and all these different things. You need to do that, but then at the same time, or not necessarily, and understand how hard they need to work. At the same time, the power of the ability to network and get eventually get clients and understand that that's one of the longest, most important things. See here, a lot of law firms on this call. Let's see here. Okay, ton of so how can I transition from a law firm to a legal tech startup as an attorney? So most people that get in-house jobs, they do it in a bunch of different ways. A lot of people will get in-house jobs through existing clients. If you don't get them through existing clients, then you need to apply to positions that you find that do that, or you need to market yourself to places where you think you could potentially work. So there's lots of legal tech startups that you could apply to and just send your resume to and network with on LinkedIn and so forth. If you're currently working in a law firm and then you're going to a legal tech startup, I think this is a good question and something for most people to think about. So if you go from a law firm to a newer company, it's very, very risky. I've seen lots of attorneys do that. and they try to transition to companies, and most legal tech startups don't make it. So the failure rate of new companies is over 90%. So that's very, very risky. And then so realizing that if you go to a new startup, you're likely to probably lose your job and the company's likely to go out of business. That's very risky, and people do it all the time because they think, well, I'm going to make a lot more money, or I'm going to, I can get stock options and things. Another thing that's important though to think about that a lot of people don't realize. So if you go to a legal tech startup as an attorney, and this is something I want everyone to understand, it's extremely important. So not only is a company very likely to go out of business, but in addition to the company not going out of business, even if the company does well, most companies if you're going to a startup and the company succeeds, then a private equity firm or whoever that owns a company, or when the company grows and they bring in a professional management team like a CEO and things, they might do is to replace the person that started it. But whatever happens, they're gonna hire a different caliber of attorney as the company grows. So you could join a startup and the company become very successful and go from nothing to something generating $100 million a year, or something generating $10 million a year, but having 2 million people on the tap or whatever. And then as that company becomes successful, professional management's going to be brought in. And in addition to professional management, they're going to bring in people that have a lot more depth of experience than you have as an attorney, and you will lose your job. So most people because they're going to want professional, the CEO will want to bring in their own legal people or whatever, or certain type of person, so you're likely to lose your job. So startups are very, very risky, and not something that I would recommend. It's very, very risky unless you know the person and you feel like they're going to protect you. It's very, very risky. Yeah. Question: how do I negotiate partnership terms as an attorney being promoted to partner? Okay, well, if you're being promoted to partner as an attorney, in most cases, firms are going to have pretty similar, ways of, they're going to have buy-ins, they're going to have all sorts of things that they give to partners, and typically your compensation will be set in a certain way based on your business or based on other factors. Your compensation will be set a certain way. So how do you negotiate your terms? Well, you can negotiate your compensation, which is good, or you can negotiate how they compensate you based on the business you have. You can negotiate many times your a draw that you get against, or what you're paid. You can negotiate those things, but if you're a new partner, someone that's becoming a new partner, typically you're not going to have, most firms you won't have a lot of say. They'll have different, you'll have to kind of take what they give you, and then do what you can to increase your compensation, or to get more of what you want, initially. So every firm's going to have different terms that they would use for partners, and different firms will even have like 5 or 6 pages of just all these different things that they give points to for people to be a partner. The larger the firm, typically the less negotiation room you have. If you have a lot of business, so if you have like $10 million in business, you're bringing to the firm, often you can negotiate terms related to that. But that's kind of how that works. And unfortunately, what happens this is just something to understand. Most partners in law firms, there'll be other people setting the compensation, and the law firm will basically tell them what they're getting paid, and it's just kind of how it works. So it's often very difficult to negotiate partner terms. You have a lot more negotiation room often if you're moving firms. So partners that move firms have a lot of negotiation room if they have business, but if you're just getting promoted to partner, you're not going to have a lot of negotiation room in most cases. You'll have to understand what their compensation system is, and then try to work in there. Okay, let me see here. Okay. This is a really good question. I like this question because there's a lot of depth to this next question, and I hope there's people on this call that can learn from it. I've been thinking a lot about this issue. Okay, so this question is, what are the challenges of practicing law as a first generation attorney, and how can I overcome them? So, and just so you understand this, there's a lot of different types of people that are first generation attorney. In many cases, they're people that come out of underprivileged backgrounds. There's people from different socioeconomic and racial groups that are first generation attorneys. Whether you're from Mexico or you're an African American or you're white from a rural area and everyone's a farmer. So there's all these people that become first generation attorneys. And unfortunately, the majority of them, I see this again and again, the majority of people that are first generation professionals, the majority, not all, will fail. And they will fail because of the way they think about their careers. So they think about their careers as, and it's extremely important because I see this all the time. And it's very sad because I review resumes all day and I see all these first generation attorneys that are unemployed or making the stupidest career decisions imaginable. So what are the challenges? Well, one of the challenges is, the big one is understanding the rules of the game. So, and what does that mean? That means that you need to understand all the stuff that I talked about earlier, perseverance and what else, perseverance, intelligence, the things I talked about. I mean, you need to understand those sorts of things like I just talked about. One of the biggest challenges is, thinking of work as a job. So when you're a first generation attorney, a lot of times your parents may have been in working class positions where, I mean, they could have been working in a fast food restaurant or they could have been, who knows? And so you think of your work as a job and you don't think in terms of all the other things you need to do because you're not just going to be valued based on the work you do and how hard you work. You're going to be valued by your ability to connect with other people and your ability to kind of do not just work as a job, is thinking about what you do more as your ability to bond with people, your ability to get business, your ability to do all these sorts of things, thinking of things in that sort of way. So that's one of the first things. And so if you think of your job as a job, like you're just trying to make as much money as possible, then that's going to hurt you. And so you need to think of your work as a career and as a mission and, committed to it instead of the other ways around. I was talking to a woman yesterday. She was, God, it was crazy. Like, she's a African American. I mean, she might be on this college. She's an African American. She was first generation. When she got out of law school, her whole goal was not to get a job, was to pass the bar. That was like the biggest thing for her. So she studied for several months before taking it and passed. And it was like, and she said her grandfather went to her swearing in ceremony. No one ever been an attorney, but she made all these mistakes. She graduated from law school and she got in the job, and then she I don't know, then she left and she'd gone to work for Axiom or something as basically as a contract staff attorney. And then after that, somehow, then she'd gone in-house to a company, and then she'd been at a law firm for like 3 months. I don't know how she got through BCG screening because she just shouldn't have been one of our candidates. I mean, she was in house. We typically don't work with people from in house. She would be a contract attorney. It was, so somehow she got into our system. We were working with her, and I couldn't believe it. She'd followed all of our advice and has like 3 interviews or something through BCG because she'd allow us to apply to her a lot of places, and then she said she used all the interview materials and things that I sent and studied all this work to get a job with a decent firm. She's been in it for 3 months, but she made all these things. So people make these mistakes. They don't. A lot of first generation attorneys don't realize that if they get into a law firm and the going gets tough, they have to stay there. They can't just leave. They often will become contract attorneys. They will often go in house. They will often get discouraged early on and leave law firms and not know what they're doing and make these aimless career decisions that aren't leading anywhere. It's very common. Like going to work as a contract attorney is not going to lead anywhere. Going in house, if you want to have a long-term career very early in your career, is not going to lead anywhere. I mean, going in house, I just want to make a couple quick points. If you go in house without a lot of experience, whatever company you go into, if it's a decent sized company, their general counsel is going to be like someone that's been a partner at, huge firm, usually the company's big, that you're never going to advance to that role most of the time. And most companies go out of business, or they merge, or all these things happen. So most people that go in house, you don't stay there more than a couple of years. So you can't think of your career, if you're a first generation attorney, as a job. It's not like you graduate from law school to make $188,000 a year. You graduate from law school, you get trained in the practice area, which takes about 5 years. So you need 5 years to learn a practice area. So if you go get out of law school and you become a commercial litigator and you do that for 5 years, then you can handle most cases representing companies. If you do that personal injury law, you can handle most cases suing people. And I mean, you have to get about 5 years of experience. So most first generation attorneys, most of them will drop out of the practice of law after a few years, or go into in-house or become contract attorneys. It's just very, very common. They don't understand that you need to commit to this profession. You can't leave when the going gets tough. A lot of times they will get into firms, first generation attorneys, and they will isolate themselves. So, I'll just be very blunt. If I was if I was a first generation attorney and I wasn't comfortable around people of a certain socioeconomic background, or people that were whatever, not my race. I mean, I wasn't comfortable around them. And there's reasons that for different types of people not to be comfortable around others. But you need to, as a first generation attorney, you need to be friends with people that are in the firm that are like you. Meaning first year attorneys be friends with other first year attorneys. You need to be able to do good work. You need to be able to learn from others, and you need to have a filter of the world where you realize that you can't just leave your job. So I see all the time when we're talking about, if I go and look at people that have applied to BCG and sent their resume since this webinar started, I will find lots of people that are first generation attorneys that quit the practice of law. So they went into like a major firm, and then they left, and maybe they're unemployed, or they did something stupid, or they gave up when the going got tough. So if you're a first generation attorney and you get a job, you need to go into wherever you are and just give it your all and learn from other people. And then you need to stay as long as you possibly can. And that's what first generation attorneys miss, is they give up when the going gets tough, or they think about, they're just there to make money and they got this great job, and they don't put in the level of commitment, and they don't interact with people that are not from the same sort of socioeconomic background. They don't understand the rules. If I was a first generation attorney, and what I would do is I would learn everything I possibly could about what it takes to succeed in a law firm. So if you're watching this, that's helping you. If you read my articles, that's helping you. If you learn all this information, like I'm telling you, because I've been doing this for 25 years, and I read and speak about it and all this stuff, I mean, I have a decent understanding of it. So if you're able to understand what you need to do, then you're going to succeed. But most people don't. Most people get in these environments, and often they're uncomfortable with the people. They're not getting positive feedback, so they leave. Sometimes they don't have the level of commitment, and they don't look at the world in a way where you need to really give it everything you got, and connect with other people, like people that are this is another thing first generation attorneys do, and I hate to see this, but so people that are first generation attorneys, it's kind of the working class people, and again, this is not negative, but they think of their employer as someone that is maybe trying to take advantage of them, or they're there to make money. Like when you work in a factory, like you're probably not that enthusiastic about putting screws into a catalytic converter of a car, somebody's part of your job. You just do it, and then you're unionized, and you think about the employer in a negative way, that everyone's trying to take advantage of you, and you just can't bring in that. And that's how your parents thought about things. So you can't bring in that attitude of like being against the employer, someone's trying to take advantage of you, or you're just there to make money. You're there really to get training and to learn about a career that you can do for the rest of your life. If you go into a law firm at the age of 25, and you learn all the rules and how to do well in a law firm, you can work there for, you can work in a law firm. You could start out one law firm and work there for 50 years if you learn the rules of the game. Most people don't. Or you could practice law for 50 years, and most people don't. So they don't think of their careers as a long-term play. They think of it like they're just there to make money. They don't, maybe they'll get advanced, maybe they won't. They don't think of it that way. And the biggest thing that I would tell everyone on this call, and it's very, very important, when you get a law degree, it used to be that you would get a law degree and then you would go, this before large law firms, which are really only in the last 75 years, maybe even a little bit less than that. But you used to get a degree and you'd pass the bar, and that would give you a license to do business. So you'd move to whatever town you were from and you'd hang on a shingle, and probably on your own. And then you would have this license. And then with that license, you would be able to serve people in whatever community you had, and you would have a business. And so that's really what a law degree is, and people don't understand this. So a law degree, and then passing the bar is a license to do business. So you go into a law firm and you have this license, and then hopefully you generate business, and then you think about it that way. So when you're an associate and a new attorney, what happens is you're going into a law firm, and you're getting training, and then hopefully you develop business. Because when you get to the point where you're developing business, this is how people don't think about their careers. So when you get to a point where you become a partner, you're generating business, and you're in a practice area, what happens is you get to a point where, and this is what everyone on this call, I hope you can evolve to this, or if you're not there, evolve to this in your senior attorney. But you get the law firm, you're an employee when you start, but when you're an employee, you're getting all this great training from a law firm. So you're an employee. But after being an employee, you get to a point where you have all this business, which your goal should be, and then essentially the law firm works for you, because law firms are not places where you're just there to make money. A law firm serves partners with business. That's what they do. If a partner has enough business, then they go to a law firm, and the law firm says, in the bed of the law firm, we're going to provide you associates to do your work, and secretaries and paralegals. We're going to give you office space. We're going to give you a brand. We're going to have all these people you can refer different types of work to. And we're going to make it really a great place for you to work. And in exchange for that, you're going to give us probably, 80% to 65% of all the revenue generates. You bring in $5 million into a firm, and you have this, and then you go to the firm, and hopefully the firm gives you all the support so you can hold on to your clients. You have a brand, and then the law firm maybe pays you $1.5 million a year. That's what law firms do. They exist to, maybe they pay you too, I don't know, but they exist to serve as partners. So you need to put yourself in a position where you understand this is what first generation attorneys don't do, that your goal should be to be in a position where that law firm is servicing you and your clients, and you're not an employee. Because once you get to the point where you're an attorney with business, you are an independent business. You have a business. And so a law firm is nothing other than something to service your business. And that's how you need to think about your career. Go into a law firm, you start learning, you get information, and then the law firm will teach you, and then the law firm will support you. So you need to think about things that way. Okay, so I get a lot of these questions every week, and I'll answer this one. Okay, any tips or tricks for international lawyers and how they can best success on their careers, and on best they can success in their careers in the US? Just to clarify, they've got an LLM, became licensed attorneys. All right, first of all, you need to learn to write. I'm just kind of having fun with you here, but how they can succeed. So what most international people that get an LLM do, and this is hopefully very helpful to you. So most LLMs, they get a degree, and then they think, okay, I'm going to go to work in Los Angeles or New York City, and they think they have to work in these large cities, and then they only think about the large firms, because before they get their LLM, they know how much attorneys make in the US, the top firms, and they try to get jobs there, and they don't, and so they go back to wherever they're from, and thinking that they failed. So what's just insane is, and I'll just show everyone on this call, I think this will help you, but you don't just look at places where you don't just run your career in a way where you're only looking for jobs in big cities. So say you get an LLM and you want to do, you have to think about the market in terms of, where am I most likely to get a job, or what kind of firm. So you don't just think in terms of large major law firms. You think in terms of all the different places you could possibly work. So I'll do this. I'll just show everyone list of cities in California sorted by population. And this, by the way, if you understand what I'm talking about right now, it could change the whole direction of your career. So you have, so when you're looking at any, you're looking at any market, there's going to be, or state, there's going to be all these different towns of different sizes and things where you could work. And so those people that get LLMs, they think, okay, I need to work in Los Angeles in one of the largest firms. And so they never get jobs, because who's going to hire in a foreign country when they can hire people that don't need sponsorship and that have gone to U.S. law school. So if you get an LLM, that's not really that helpful for law firms, because you're not showing that you can compete with. If you go to a U.S. law school for a JD, you get into the best law school you can, and then you do the best you can at that law school, and that shows your performance in relationship to the 40,000 other people that graduated from law school per year. So if you go to Harvard and you're at the top of your class, then you're going to be one of the top 100 people that they can hire, or whatever. You're going to be very, very marketable. But if you just get an LLM, everyone gets good grades in an LLM program, so it's kind of useless. But so what most people don't do, like, here's an example. Let's see, Oxnard. So Oxnard is about 30 miles from here, 25. It's not too far. There are law firms there that are completely desperate for people. I had a guy recently that was a solo practitioner, had only done trust in estates, and this law firm in Oxnard called and interviewed him and was going to pay him $170,000 a year to help with litigation. He wasn't even a litigator. And so I sent him out. They were willing to pay me a substantial fee for hiring him, and they were hiring him, wasn't even an opening. So the point is that there's all these smaller markets and things where, if you wanted to work in Oxnard, which no one thinks about, it's actually a really nice place. But you could go at corporate law firms in Oxnard, California. Or here we go, right here, Oxnard, California. So you have all these different corporate law firms, Audette and Partners, and all these different places. You have the Singh law firm. You have all these different businesses and things in Oxnard. So why is this important? It's important because there's so many opportunities out there, and people are not applying to all these different places where they could possibly work. So the estate planning and trust firm in Oxnard. Now, I'm willing to bet that if you were a trust and estates attorney and wanted to work here, you could probably get a job, because firms like this, there's probably 50 of these in Oxnard. So all you do is you just apply to enough places, and you apply to markets where there's not a lot of attorneys, and then you get a job. You apply to them and you say, I'm got this LLM, I practice corporate law in wherever, Ukraine, and I really want to work. I'm a California bar attorney, and I really want a job. So you don't have to be a trust and estates attorney. You can find firms in Oxnard that do corporate if you want to do that, or litigation. And Jesus, what the hell is this? And the point is that there's so many different opportunities out there, and all you need to do, anybody that you don't think you can get a job, is you just need to start targeting all these markets that other people aren't. And there are, anytime, if this isn't even all this isn't even all the firms. This Livermore with 84,000 people, that I'm willing to guarantee, I would guarantee you that in Livermore, California, there's probably 30 different firms, even though it's 87,000, and small firms and medium-sized firms that do all sorts of different work that are never going to get applications. And if you apply to them, you have a good chance of getting a job. I tell this story quite a bit on these webinars, but I used to sit in a room where I would watch calls coming in and recruiters taking calls, and then I would coach them on whatever happened in the call, like what to do. But we used to get calls, at least a couple of times a year, of people of attorneys that were in these different markets that might be small. They might be in somewhere in Nebraska, or they might be in a desert town in California somewhere, and they'd be like, I'm retiring. I need someone to come in and take over my practice. It happens all the time, and so there are people all over the country that need attorneys that are barred, and wherever you are, were places you can work. So if I was an LLM, all I would do is I would make sure that I was applying to as many possible places as I could in all these different markets, because there are, I think it's over 300,000 licensed attorneys in California. Some of those people are solo practitioners, some are in small firms. I mean, there's just all these different places anyone can work, and so people make a huge mistake of not understanding the market. So all I'm saying here is I just want you to see kind of what's going on here. There are so many different towns and things that, and places you can work. I mean, even like it's just kind of interesting. Like you can go to like maybe let's go to ChatGPT. It's always kind of fun. You go to ChatGPT and you can say, can you name 50 law firms in California in cities with populations below 50,000 that do corporate law. This is just an example. There's a lot of, well, as an example. So ChatGPT, I mean, I don't even know if you get this wrong, ChatGPT, but would tell you this. I mean, so here's the 50 law firms in cities with populations below 50,000. So why would you target something like this? Because no one else is applying to those firms. Everyone's trying to find firms in major cities and all this stuff, and I'm trying to work there. And if you're trying to work in a major city, you're going to be competing with lots and lots of other people that have those skills. So you can do these searches on ChatGPT. I mean, you could, if you're like whatever your expertise, if you have some sort of expertise, you could find firms that do that. I mean, there's just so many possible places that anyone could apply to. So the idea that you can't get a job is absolutely insane. And this is what LLMs do. LLMs try to get jobs in major cities, working in the largest firms. They don't succeed because why would you hire an LLM if you're a big firm when you can hire lots and lots of people from different markets? So I'm going to let the search run in the background. I mean, it's kind of interesting, but again, I just asked for 50 law firms in cities below 50,000, which is very interesting because you can always find lots and lots of places to apply. So let's go to let's see. Okay, next question. Wait a second. Here we go. Next one. And we'll come back to the search. It's just fascinating that you can do something like this in ChatGPT. Okay, next question. Thanks everyone for these questions. I think very, very helpful. I love the question about first generation attorneys. I love the question about LLM because there are thousands of people that come over and pay, $100,000 plus to get an LLM. They never get jobs because they're just making all of these just ridiculous mistakes of applying to big cities and thinking they can't get a job. And what I'm also talking about, these are unsolicited applications. So you apply to a place, even if they don't have an opening, if the firm has enough work for you, they will hire you. Why wouldn't they? So, and they're not getting applications in these cities, below 50,000 are just brilliant if you apply to those. So how is it possible to cultivate the skills necessary to become a large law firm partner in a managing attorney role in a law firm, or is it better to grow into an associate position? Okay, so this is a good question. So there are all these people that go into law firms and they don't have titles as associates. They decide they're going to become, I see people, I had one woman, very talented trademark attorney, very smart, and she always listened, watched my webinars and learned, and but she was in a very small firm, like 5 or 6 people, and doing trademark work. And then she got an offer. She applied to some place on LinkedIn or something to be a staff attorney in a major law firm. And she thought, I should go, this is incredible. Like I'm going to have this big law firm on my resume. Well, it's actually not good because if you get these staff attorney roles in law firms, it's not the same as being an associate, and it's never going to lead anywhere positive. I mean, you can certainly be a staff attorney, but as a staff attorney, you're not going to get a sophisticated work. You're not going to be considered someone that, let me just see this kind of interesting here. Wow. So I just want to show you this search real quick that I just did on ChatGPT because I just think it's fascinating. Like it's identifying all of these places, these different cities, and that do corporate law that no one out there is really applying to. All these places. And if I had a corporate attorney that had decent qualifications, Like I would, now these are big firms here, but you have all these smaller firms and mid-sized firms and all these different things in Palm Springs. I found one in Indian Wells. I mean, there's just not a lot of competition. Saratoga, like absolutely fascinating. And no one is applying to these firms. So if you were to do that, you would be very, very well suited to, I mean, you would get jobs and just people don't do that. So all these different places that someone with an LLM could apply to that no one's applying to. No one's really looking at jobs in Mill Valley or Sausalito, I guess, or whatever. It's very interesting. So, okay, I'll go back to the question here, just because I kind of sidetracked. Okay, so you don't want to be a managing attorney. You don't want to be a staff attorney. You don't want to be a contract attorney. You don't need to do any of these things because if you take one of those roles, you're never going to be advanced. And it just doesn't make any sense. You're better off going to a smaller firm where you can be an associate and learn how to develop business and become successful and get trained in things instead of trying to work at a large law firm in a title where you're not an associate. I had one guy who was very fascinating. He went to University of Virginia Law School. He graduated, got a job in a big firm, and then he after getting a job in a big firm, he left to go be a lobbyist or something to work for a lobbying firm for a year. And then he tried to go back to law firms. No one would hire him. And because why would they hire someone that left after 1 year to do something else? And so the only job he could get was the staff attorney job at a mid-sized firm in Cleveland, where they were paying him, instead of him making 180,000, he was making like 90,000 or 80,000 or something. Wasn't able to pay his student loans. It was the best job he could get. And he was like, can't you make me an associate? Can't you make me an associate of the firm? They're like, we never make staff attorneys associates. It's just not, and that's how most firms are. So why would you take a job as a staff attorney? Why would you take a job as a contract attorney? No one does. I don't care if you went to like a law school ranked 350 out of 400 or whatever many law schools there are. And you try to get and anybody can get a job as an associate, regardless of how you did. Anybody can, maybe you don't want to work in a very sophisticated practice area, but anybody can get a job. So why would you take a job where there's no future? It doesn't make any sense. And people do this all the time. They do contract jobs, they take all these things. You're better off if you were like, say you were it just doesn't matter. Like I knew some guys at Quinn Emanuel, which is an incredible firm, over 1,000 people, where you have to have great qualifications to get there. But I knew some guys, a couple guys that became family law attorneys. Like instead of not making partner there and things, they decided to start their own practices and do that and became very successful. I mean, there's all these different things that you can do, and you don't need to put yourself in a role where you're not going to succeed. There's no point. So I just hate it when people do that. I'm sorry to get so kind of like wound up about it, but there's no sense in taking a job where there's no future. And you just be an associate somewhere. Just don't do it. Okay, this is let me see here. As a U.S. attorney, I declined an offer to work in-house for an international electronics company. What are your thoughts if I tried to bring them into a firm that I joined? Sure. But U.S. attorneys, I mean, your skills like related to criminal defense. But yeah, you could bring a client that you certainly, if you joined a law firm, you could bring that client if they were to do that. But yeah, I mean, sure, you could do it. Why wouldn't you do that? I mean, you could bring in work. One of the things I'd also like to just tell people about. So a lot of people want to become U.S. attorneys. It's very difficult if you become U.S. I mean, I'm glad that's awesome. You got a job in-house for this international electronics company. Because U.S. attorney, once you take a job in the government, even though U.S. attorney is an extremely prestigious job, it can be very, very difficult to transition back into law firms just because, it's how it is. I mean, and most U.S. attorneys do criminal defense. And so you have to find a firm that has white collar defense. And it's not easy to move as a U.S. attorney. But I think that's great. You've got that offer. I mean, I don't, and yes, if you can bring a client to a law firm, that makes you much more valuable. 1 second here. Oops, sorry about that. Okay, what are your thoughts? What are the signs in law school that I might thrive in a large law firm environment? Well, I mean, if you're very, very enthusiastic and you like to work hard and and you do well in law school, it's natural to you, then you might thrive in a large law firm environment. Law schools don't teach you how to thrive in a large law firm environment. You learn that by working there, but people in law school, I mean, how do you tell what it's like to work in a large law firm? If you're, I'll just tell you one quick story that I think is kind of funny, but I'll just tell it real quickly. When I was in law school, I was taking this class. It was kind of a funny class. It was about the information age and how people would soon be working in front of computers and the internet. This is like in 1995, before that was the case. And it was kind of interesting. The guy was teaching it was an associate professor at Yale Law School, and he uh, didn't make tenure. It was just, but anyway, so I was sitting with him one day in his office, and I was getting the highest grade in his class. He was getting like an A minus and whatever this was, the papers I wrote. And I was sitting in his office, and he said to me, I'll never forget. He's like, "What are you doing here? Like, why are you in law school?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" Like at that point, like I was on law review. I was a job in a big firm in the summer. I was going to do a federal clerkship, and he's like, "What are you doing here?" And I was like, "What do you mean? I'm trying to be a lawyer." And he's like, No, you're not." Like he's like, you're just doing this, but you're never gonna probably want to be a lawyer. You're gonna start a business or something." And I was like, "How can you possibly say that to me?" And he's like, "Well, just look at you and then look at all the students. You're just not like them." And I was like, well, I didn't understand. And his office was like had a window overlooking the library, and you look down there and there were all these people like just taking everything very seriously, and he was right. So this stuff has to click for you. I think one of the biggest things about being a lawyer and working in a law firm or wherever you are is, so I had this kind of was giving off this vibe like I wanted to run my own business. I didn't want to take orders. I didn't, I do my own things, maybe have lawyers working for me. And so a lawyer has to want to help clients, and they want to take other people's problems and solve them. And that's just how it is. So if you're like that, I mean, that means you could be a good lawyer if you're working hard. If you feel like you're like the people that are going to work in big law firms, like you click with them and their personality style, then yeah, then that can be good for you. But you just have to see it. I mean, when that guy said that to me, I was very upset. And I think I told a couple other professors that I was upset about it, and they were like, "Why would you say that?" and stuff. But he was right. So it just you have to be that kind of person. And and I mean, I can't tell you if you're like that person, but you have to be that sort of person. Which, I mean, it's a good question. I mean, it's kind of a hard one to answer, but okay. How do I improve my legal writing skills to match the expectations of top law firms? So I might even know who this is that's on the call, because I have this woman. She was working in a big New York law firm, and she's working very, very hard. She kept asking me for input, and she was in a transactional related practice here. And so maybe you can improve your writing. And so she quit the law firm to take a federal clerkship because she thought it would help her writing, because she's going to do everything she could do to improve. But anybody can improve their writing skills. I mean, it's not really that hard to improve your legal writing skills. That you can actually do it just using ChatGPT and stuff right now. So why just plug things in there and improve your writing or Grammarly or whatever? So people don't do that. They just think that, but now, I mean, anybody can improve your writing just by entering ChatGPT. So there are certain things there's a really good book, and I wish I knew the name of it, but when you're writing things, your writing as an attorney needs to be very direct, use as few words as possible to make a point, and then be very direct and not have a lot of verbiage, and you can't get sidetracked by theories and things. It just needs to be very direct. So you need to learn how to write that way. And I learned how to write that way. It's fascinating, like what a good like litigator and how people do good writing. But right now, I mean, I don't see it to be very difficult to improve your writing. I would just use, Chat GPT, honestly, to improve your writing. It's pretty easy. It didn't used to be like that. Okay, what do you see the legal market heading into in 2026? Well, the legal market is the legal market's always good. You just have to find firms that are looking for people like you. So the legal market will depend on the city, it'll depend on the practice area, it'll depend on the economy, but there are always practice areas that are busy. Insurance defense is always busy, commercial litigation is always busy. People are always writing patents. There's always real estate transactions. There's always people needing trust in the state's work. There's always personal injury work. I mean, there's work in every single practice area. So when I look at the legal market, I don't really see, it being negative I mean, I don't ever see it being negative. It just depends on where you're trying to work. It can be good in good and bad economies. This quick story, I told this in previous webinars, but I had a woman working for me. Well, I had an office in Chicago and then an office in New York. And there was a recession in 2008. The attorneys in New York, I told them, you need to send your candidates to the suburbs and to smaller markets and you'll be fine. Because even though the corporate was bad in New York, it was okay in these other markets. There's always work if you go into smaller markets. And then I had people in Chicago that were working for me, and I told them the same thing. You need to send your candidates to smaller markets. And so during this recession, during the recession, the attorneys and the recruiters in Chicago ended up making just as many placements and making just as much money as they made the previous year when things were much better, because they just looked at smaller markets and for their candidates. And then the attorneys in New York were all kind of the recruiters were all very they thought they were very special and only worked with the big firms, and they didn't make any placements and actually ended up being out of the business. So the market's always good. It doesn't really matter. I don't care what the year is. There's certain practice areas that are always busy, like trust and estates is always busy. So many personal injuries always busy. Immigration's usually almost busy. I mean, practice areas are, it doesn't often really matter. Let me just see here. This next question is, how do I, and I'm almost done with questions. There's still some questions pending, but a lot of them are just similar things I've already answered. But honest. How do I evaluate whether to stay at my current firm or explore the opportunity? So if you're looking to move, there's a couple of different things. You can move if you can get into a better firm where you think you're going to get more experience in your practice area. You can move into a larger firm where you're going to get to work on larger clients and get better experience. You should move to another firm if you feel like you have a bad reputation or you're not doing well at your firm. You should move to another firm if your workload is too slow at your existing firm and you're not getting enough work. You should move to another firm if you're not happy there with the kind of people and the culture is not right. So all those sorts of things, you should evaluate. You shouldn't move to another firm just because you want to move and you think it'd be fun and other people are moving. You're usually better off staying where you're at because people like to see employment stability. So if you can stay at your first firm for 5 years, that's great. Most firms are not going to be much different than where you are, and but they might be. If you can move to a better firm where there's a little bit more work, or you're not happy with the culture of your existing firm, then it's always a good idea to move. You want to be around, you want to be around people that are, similar to you. Okay, oops, sorry. How marketable is an LLM in tax, LLM in labor and employment, et cetera? So LLM in tax is a good degree to get. There's some places that are very well respected, like NYU and Georgetown. If you want to be a tax lawyer, then yes, it's a good idea to get an LLM in tax. People like LLMs in tax if they're hiring tax lawyers. Tax is a very difficult practice area because in most cases you're supporting the M&A department and things like that, and you may not, it's hard to have your own business. It's very, very competitive to be a tax attorney because you're competing with people in accounting firms and things. It's not easy to find jobs as a tax attorney. An LLM in labor and employment, I think, is kind of useless. The tax is a good one. If you're a healthcare attorney, healthcare can be okay, but most LLMs are a waste of time. Sometimes people will get an LLM so they have a really good school on their resume. So you might have gone to a fourth-year law school and then get an LLM from Harvard or something that looks good. But in most cases, I don't think LLMs are really that good of an idea. Okay, thanks everyone for being on the webinar. If no one has any questions, I think I'm done. But I do think this topic was hopefully very helpful. The big thing just to understand about what we talked about today is that it's important to be in an environment where you're making the most use of your skills. So if you're not in an environment where you're making the most use of your skills, I mean, a large law firm might not be that environment. Even a law firm might not be the environment. Then you should be in a different practice setting, or you should be in a practice area where you're likely to succeed. So I don't like a lot of these questions because I don't like a lot of things that I've seen today. So I think it's very difficult, for example, for first generation attorneys, if you don't understand these rules to succeed, you need to understand that. I don't like watching people go get LLMs or be staff attorneys and things, because it's usually a waste of their time and money. You need to be in something that you're very good at. Personal injury is fascinating to me because, again, that's a practice here where people make so much money. I have a guy that I used to work with, and he's getting ready to settle this case where he's going to make $10 million. And another guy, similar in a similar situation, where he referred a case to someone, but it's going to be hundreds of millions of dollars, and he's going to cut it out. So, I mean, you can do well in personal injury, which is like a lot of marketing. You can do well in all these different practice areas, where, you may not be making the most of your skills if you're in your current practice area. You may not be making the most of your skills if you're in a major market where you're not going to succeed. You may be making the most of your skills if you're at a certain firm. The culture doesn't match, all these things. So, all right. Well, thanks everyone, and I hope you have a good rest of your week. And I'll be back next week.